The killer entered the room, and disappeared with a knife while the girl was tied to the wall. Two young girls, Mafuyu and Tomo, go to the Holy Academy, and at the same time, in a church, they are praying in front of the icon of God, as their uncle instructed them. In the past, while Tomo was still nodding, Mafuyu drew his wooden sword, and struck her on the head, waking her up. It had been 3 days since Tomo had attended class, and now they were being compelled to come as they ran to class. Tomo tripped, and fell over when Mafuyu stopped abruptly. Mafuyu came over, to greet Teresa, a blonde girl. Mafuyu is delighted that Teresa finally remembered her name. Mafuyu was certain that Teresa was hiding something because she was so mysterious, and only gave a light nod before leaving. When they entered the classroom, Tomo's table was vandalized by someone. Mafuyu looked around to see who's the culprit when a brown-haired girl announced that she did it. It was all Hana's doing. Mafuyu gripped Hana's neck furiously. The class had begun to believe that Tomo's father, the ex-hat master, was responsible for the murders after her father's absence, and a string of homicides. Mafia was about to strike when the pink-haired Mayuri reminded her that she would be expelled from her dorms if she used violence. As a result, my 4-year withdrew her, and later it is shown that Teresa is attending the school to look into the murders just as the pastor has surmised. Meanwhile, Tomo was running away from Mafuyu as they were playing when she ran into a silvered-haired boy. Mafuyu thought the boy looked a lot like the infant depicted in a church artwork. He had just met the girls, and he has already done something heinous to Tomo before. He even opened his eyes, rushing over Mafuyu, smacked him until he passed out. Mafuyu is a bit violent to the boy, so they had to take him back to the dorms to take care of him, but Tomo was curious because he looked too much like a girl. He then abruptly vanished when she was about to check on him, but Mafuyu stormed out, and then noticed that the church was ragingly ablaze before he raced in, and tried to save the painting that her uncle loved so much, but she was then caught by the killer. She specialized in murdering virgins without a significant other. Mafuyu was cuffed to the wall, and the killer kept talking about how she and Tomo don't fit in, and have no friends here. Mafuyu was dejected, and prepared to die, but the murderer chose to destroy the painting instead of going after her. Mafuyu pleaded her to stop, but she was unconcerned. Then the silver-haired boy rather saved Mafuyu at the exact moment after assisting in the release of Mafuyu's ties. He was worn out. The murderer was a little frightened, since this man was Shasha, the strongest atheist. The killer attacked him again while Shasha was exhausted, but Teresa appeared in time to halt her, and after finishing his work, he showed his chest to Sasha. The windows of the church flew out. The holy cross became a sickle. When Sasha stood on top of it, he could feel the fear of the killer. The killer was killed. After Mafuyu thanked him, there was only a piece. The young man he recognized quickly left. He went to church the next morning, but the part of the church he saw himself, since last night he had come to ask the priest where Teresa was, that he felt bad, so he is resting for a moment. Then after the lesson, Sasha entered the classroom to enter the lesson. It was another surprise. The girls shivered when they saw the cute boy. My friend, you took the boy at recess, you asked. During the Emir of Hana also arrives, and calls Mafuyu by his real name to warn Mafuyu not to worry about him. And Shasha gives him a look, and tells him that if he does part 2, he'll be in danger. After waking up from the nightmare before you, Tomo falls ill before visiting the church, and Tomo stays in the bedroom to rest, although he doesn't understand what it means. Mafuyu looks at the picture before leaving, continued, a legendary figure capable of changing the balance of the world. Fearing that the father of the heel would happen, he had to hide it at school, but it was no longer possible. But Sasha Mafuyu was sitting on the bench where he came to find him, ask him about the recent murders. Mafuyu was incensed, but the killer Tomoda knew everything about him. He could not stay and wait for them to appear again, and kill them, but Sasha didn't really care, so Mafuyu had to accuse him of being the same as those murderers, ending up such as pointed a knife at her throat. If she didn't know anything, then she should stop talking. He would kill anyone who dared to lay their hands on that seal. That was his mission. He ridiculed Mafuyu for calling him a murderer, even though having no idea what going on. He spoke for a short while before passing out. While dreaming, Sasha gets to see a fragment of his memory. When he awoke, he was laying in Tomo's lap. The moment Mafia came back from cooking from food, Shasha was going to depart, but the girls wanted him to stay and eat. After some edging from Tomo, he finally gave in and had a taste of the soup because it was so good. He grabbed the plate and kept eating. After this, Sha gave them the permission to use his own name to address him. Their food made his heart swear a bit, so he'll grant them this. Teresa then came to escort Sasha, but before leaving, Teresa told Mafuyu to be cautious. Even when Mafuyu is bathing, she was still confused by what Teresa's words meant. The topic about Sha was then brought up by Tomo and her friend. While he can be a harsh person around Mafuyu, Sha was really adorable around them. Finishing bathing, Mafuyu told Tomo to go to bed first, in fear that she might catch another fever in the morning. The entire day, Aina, the girl that has been with them the entire time, had been a huge assistant. Mafia didn't have time to express her gratitude until now. After Toma had left, Aina inquired about what's going on. Even she and Toma were unaware of what the others were searching for. Out of the blue, the murderer from before Ens returned, and she captures Ayana, taking her away. When Mafia caught up to her, the murderer wanted her to review everything she knows about the seal. If not, she will kill Ayana. Mafia recalled Shasha's advice that she should stand up for herself. If not, then she can't save anyone else. Pretending to toss a training sword over, Mafuyu rushes forward and ends the individual, but she didn't expect that it was Toma who was under the mask. Too shocked to do anything, Sasha and Teresa have arrived to help Mafia, but his target wasn't Tomo. He was after Ayana. He knew that she was the real mastermind behind the murders, and is only controlling Tomo. With her cover blown, she jumps away, still holding Tomo. Sasha hurried the strike after gaining some energy from Teresa. Aina did the same with Tomo, increasing her strength. She flung a few daggers at Sasha, but they were enough to crack his scythe. Her blades are made out of magnesium, a harder metal than Sasha's iron scythe, so she's still tall and self-assured as she dished out more daggers. Sasha then used some kind of power to heat up his scythe, blocking the daggers, then using parts of his scythe to fire at Ayada, but he wasn't able to touch her. She was going to burn Tomo, but through some chemistry Sasha was able to put out the flames using his heated scythe. Sasha ran towards Aina, melting through her weapons, impaling her, and finally ending her. He then gave Tomo to Mafuyu, and warned her that now Tomo's energy has been used, she will be sought after by the bad guys. He swore to defend Tomo if Mafia was reluctant to leave the academy. Counter to what Mafuyu thought, they had to share their home with Sasha ever since, which baffled Mayuri. Part 3. Sasha stood beside Thomas' bed as she slept, his attention drawn to her breasts. Suddenly Mafuyu burst in and sees Sasha, and asked him why he was here, which Sasha replied that he was doing research on endless power. He continued to utter while he couldn't take his eyes off of Tomo's chest. Sasha then awoke for his nightmare. He yelled, which prompted Mafuyu and Tomo to crush in. When Tomo cautiously wiped away his sweat, he was actually more interested in her breasts. Before you angled him, he wasn't interested in her breasts, Sasha said in opposition. Then, even though this was their home, he told them to leave his room. It's only when Sasha pointed out that Mafuyu wasn't dressed properly that she came running out of the room in class as Mafuyu hurled her rage onto her notebook. Meanwhile, Sasha was getting everyone's admiration by solving a really difficult question. After class, Mafuyu took him out to remind him not to be disrespectful to the teacher, but Sasha disregarded her and left. Maliri approached them to compliment him on his talent and knowledge, trying to befriend him. Sasha didn't need her to approach him since he rewarded her more. Otherwise, during swimming class, Sasha would sat nearby the pool for the entirety of the lesson. Mayuri promised to force Sasha to follow, or in a furious manner Hana decided to try her own method. She hurried over to Mafuyu and Tomo and began to slant her words as Mafuyu. Sasha then interrupted their bullying. Just as Mafuri was about to start crying, he dealt with these bullies by squeezing Mayuri's chest and lamenting how impoverished Mayuri was and how she would never be like Tomo. In order to meet with the pastor, Sasha went to the church after class. Unfortunately, he has made his position known to the bad guys. He couldn't leave since he had pledged to protect Tomo. No longer terrified, Sasha even wished for their arrival to happen swiftly. While Fourier prepared Sasha's room that evening and served as his space. Ever since Sasha was reminded by Mafuyu that this was a girl's dorm, therefore going forward he had to knock before going into any of the rooms. Later, when they were conversing in the bathtub, Sasha burst in. Monthly you quickly covered herself and threw everything she could, but Sasha dodged all of them. Sasha gave a look at the tube's breast and complimented them. Before leaving, they went seeking for him after getting dressed, but he was nowhere to be found. Mafuri went to the church to look for him because she had an idea of where he might be when they got there. Before you got to see Sasha replenishing his powers with Teresa while trying to avert Tomo's gaze mafia. Thought that Sasha was only 13, and she was his guardian, so she was forced to come even though she didn't want to. Elsewhere, a little girl and her coffin were traveling to Japan when several robbers burst into the room to open the coffin's lid. However, as soon as they did, something dreadful appeared, sending them straight to the afterlife. The following morning, Curia the girl was picked up by Mayuri and Hara. At first Hana didn't seem to care, but when she laid eyes on the girl, she was fixate on her. Kudai came upon Sasha and his friends as they were traveling. She gave her like grin before continuing. Kurai was then taken to a clothing store to try on a few outfits. Hana had some feelings for her, as Kurai was aware. When they were left alone, Hana was requested to unzip Kurai's dress. Hana's heart pounded. Curia then suddenly passed out. She waited for Hana to come close to kiss her. Hana was quickly thought to be a pervert by Kurai. To arrest Hana, Curia called upon her mama Kudai would forgive Hana as long as she admitted her sins, saying that she might get a better kiss in a different position. Part 4. There was no denying Hana's perversion based on her behavior. She tried to deny it, but Kurai came forward and told Hara what kind of person she truly was. Harem would then serve as her female slave going forward. Mafia continued to buy aggressively in the meanwhile, but she essentially paid a ridiculous cost that alarmed Sasha. According to Mafuyu, this was a method for saving money. Then an attractive man was looking for someone when he suddenly approached and handed them a leaflet. Although this is the safest country in the world, terrible atrocities continue. My friend still wanted to visit one more place. Tomo suggested to go to the underwear retail district, but Thomas had trouble choosing a bra. Her plus-size Mafu ran over to give Teresa some good advice. Teresa wasn't too worried, she just needed to be comfortable, and could take off quickly when they needed to try on their new broad. Sasha accompanied them. His reasoning is that he was there to protect them. Mafia Baltimore head and drew him outside to examine some more stuff. Suddenly, when Tomo and Teresa finished trying on their bras, the store clerk came in with a taser and seized them. When Mafuyu returned, the clerk informed her that Teresa and Tomo had departed by the emergency exit. Mafia didn't believe it. Tomo wouldn't have left if she wasn't with her. Sasha entered the changing area and smelled a weird odor. He then disarmed the clerk of her taser and found a trap door that the clerk had led the two girls away. At the moment, Tomo was being photographed by perverts and Teresa was tied to a chair. Sasha burst through the ceiling in Andy to halt them. Sasha inquired Teresa on how this could happen since she was with Tomo, but she replied that she was distracted when Kurai suddenly came out of the ground and started attacking them. Mafia was terrified and was on the verge of calling the police. Sasha knows that Curia is using Hopper as her main element, so after recharging his powers he began to retaliate. His element was stronger and tougher, yet he couldn't cut through her copper, and instead Sasha got caught. Karan tells him about the wonders of copper before using Kappa's most common trait and electrocuted Sasha. She then proceeds to pin him to a wall. When Sasha turned out not to be as powerful as rumored, Kuraya shied disappointedly to help Sasha. Mafia drenched Kuraya and her mama in water, so if she used electricity again then she'll be shocked as well. After a little talk with Teresa, Karate decides to retreat for now. Kurai then returns to Mayuri and Hana. When Mayuri came back to check on the two, she saw the cry was completely soaked. Kurai made up a story that a silver-haired boy did this to her, which Miri immediately assumed it was Sasha, which infuriated her. One of the 12 apostles was a grayer. She could be an ally, but Teresa nor Sasha had any idea. But if Curia does have a nefarious plan, then she would be rather troublesome. Sasha explained that he was able to defeat her on his own even without Mafia's help, which the girls found cute of him later. Mayuri was decided to know that Kurai wasn't going to live with her because her combination has already been decided. Hana was returning to her apartment. When she got home, she discovered that Kurai was going to live with her from now on because a master and slave must share a place. Curia seized Hana, making it impossible for her to refuse. Part 5. Teresa awoke from her nightmare, remembering how she had watched the helplessly as her caretaker was defiled. When she was younger, Kurai was tormenting Hana. While this was happening, she always thought out with a new game to play. More and more assassins came to Japan in pursuit of the sacred artwork. They even hired one of the Lord's 12 apostles to assist them. When the pastor knew that the heretics were approaching, he charged Teresa and Sasha with putting a stop to them. He wondered how Teresa would respond if she had to face her past. Elsewhere is having a picnic with Mafuyu and Tomo he has found his new favorite snack, which is sliced cucumber. While in school, Hana claimed to be ill in order to flee to the medical facility. Despite being aware that she was completely fine, the teachers chose that her stay this time. Before leaving, out of the blue, Curia appeared, and Hana took off all her clothes, and went to the bathroom to lie on the bed with Mafuyu, and accidentally came across Teresa inside as Shasha proceeded to the church with the group. Shasha reminded her as she stood outside that while people were using the dress room, that is when they were most vulnerable, and told Teresa to always be on guard. Later, Mafia and Tomo both questioned Shasha about Teresa's origins. However, even he doesn't know. The pastor then arrived to respond to all of their queries. Teresa is brought to an orphanage because she was from a country that was going through a civil war, and our family was a casualty of that war. At the orphanage, Teresa treated everyone as though they were family. However, those blissful days were brought to an abrupt end when a man named Croa and his men arrived to massacre the entire orphanage, with only Teresa escaping because she hid in the closet. After that incident, she came to the school to empower Sasha and safeguard the secrets of the painting, which meant protecting Mafuyu and Tomo. Knowing the truth, but for you and Tomo both came to find Teresa to try to be more of a friend to her. But then Teresa and Tomo both smelt something very weird in the air. Recognizing the scent, Teresa's expression suddenly altered. Teresa trembled and did absolutely nothing when Kara found them and took Tomo hostage. Croa started grabbing Tomo. Teresa was scared at first, but after mustering up the courage she heard to save Tomo. However, Croa caught her and was about to kill her when Mafuyu threw a bag of lime powder at the man, and she quickly pulled the two girls away. As soon as Shasha arrived, the enraged Crower spat out the deadly gas. The killer, who controlled the chlorine gas, was also one of the 12 apostles. Shasha threw some iron stakes at Croa, but his chlorine gas easily melts iron. Shasha then turned a nearby iron pole into his scythe and rushed to attack. Crowl also has his own tricks. After dipping his ends into water reacting with the chlorine, and he splashes the acid water at Sasha, melting his scythe away. Sasha was in danger. Then from nowhere a shield dropped to the ground. Seeing this, Teresa asked my food to help her. Mafuyu took up the shield and rushed at Croa. He tried to melt the shield but wouldn't. Getting close enough, Teresa came jumping forward and kicked the apostle away, allowing Sasha the opportunity to kill him. Teresa was happy that she finally faced her past, but Shasha was a little bit annoyed that Curia helped him in the form of the shield. But the girls used, unlike iron, copper could not be milled by chlorine gas. In the evening, Teresa came to Mifuyu's dorm asking to live with Sasha. She realized that she is his energy supplier, so she needed to be by his side wherever and whenever he was, because she was Sasha's partner. Part 6. Tomo and Mafuya were required to dress as maids as they are going to work for the Miri family. Naturally, it was a promise, not voluntarily. A few days back, Mafuya unexpectedly was woken up by a delicious smell. Now that Teresa has moved in with them, well, for you had no more work to do because Teresa took it as her responsibility, including cleaning and preparing breakfast. Shasha had to comment that the food was not bad despite being a Japanese meal, and that it was a little sparse. Mafuyu was still curious about the objectives of the apostles, so she came to the church to find a pastor. Even though they know what they were protecting, they had no idea where the seal is kept. The pastor advised my food you not to worry too much, they just need Sasha to eliminate them all. Mafuyu entered her uncle's bedroom to look around. She had looked everywhere but had yet to find anything. She had a hunch on where it could be, but she needed to have the dorm's master key, which is in Mayuri's possession, and of course Mayuri naturally denied. It's only when Curia thankfully came and requested Mayuri to rethink her decision that she agreed, but with a condition. Due to Mayuri's request, Sasha had also had to come here wearing a cute maid outfit. Shasha thought that it was stupid and was about to leave, but Manfuyu threatened not to cook his favorite soup. With no choice, Sasha acted compliant despite his reluctance. Tomo, she thought it was a great experience for Sasha and encouraged her to try her best. Then they were surprised when the Curia suddenly appeared. She couldn't drive him away despite her best efforts, and Mafuyu chatted for a while. Mayuri then explained, the next day, an extremely expensive artifact that cannot be bought even with money is displayed at the exhibition. It belonged to the Mayuri family, but a group of robbers suddenly surrounded them. Sasha did not reach the iron fence in time. These people were not unconscious to take that priceless artifact. Of course, it was not that simple because it was currently located in the underground storage of Mayuri warehouse, the pirates had received the wrong information, but it was not a problem, for they calm, Andy to enjoy, when one of the Kurai pirates themselves was about to attack. Mayuri stepped in to protect him. He was responsible for taking care of his staff, as the owner asked Mayuri not to touch him, so they asked him to sit on his platform and remove his brain. She had to follow because she took off her clothes. Can I explain that she's really stupid? Can I ask about joining in on the fun? And also Curia uses this opportunity to get some energy from Fury with Hannah's help, brought the coffin here, called his mother, and killed all the robbers. Who was more capable than that? He knew what Kurai was with a revolver in his hand. He tried to kill him, but copper to make a shell case was used, and Kurai was the master of the Imperial Kura. Phoenix puts an end to the man's life when a sodium user named Shasha talks about destroying his old squad, which tells Phoenix to stop crying to find out more, but kills himself. He didn't have much left to give before he did. Shasha shielded them from the explosion, but her mind was filled with hatred when her sister was killed by a gold user accompanying the Phoenix, leaving the Mayuri exhibit as she vowed to kill the two herself due to the explosion.